Board of Health meeting on Tuesday, September 5th, 2017. Call the meeting to order at 7:04. Looks like the only thing on our agenda tonight is an open meeting law complaint filed by Judy Margulies on August 10th, 2017. We have town council here
And
to
Mr. Chair,
help
if I
us
can,
out.
just a point of order.
Yeah, of course.
We are recording the meeting with the audio recorder.
Okay.
And it is
Okay.
being taped live on the WACA television. It'll be rebroadcast numerous times.
All right, thank you.
Got it there.
I gotta get all the legalese stuff
Yeah,
in.
there you go. So, do you start, John? You said, I think you had a comment you'd like to make?
Yeah, hopefully,
Regarding this?
and if I make it, and hopefully it falls under the parameters of the open meeting complaint because the agenda is limited today, which, but because it is an open meeting complaint, I think it's a bigger encompassing problem that, or I don't want to say problem, challenge that this board is having.
Okay.
Is, it was mentioned in a couple of meetings prior and even in our last meeting that this board does not have policies and procedures. And I take exception to that, and I think most of the board members take exception to that, because we do have policies and procedures, and they were vetted by Lisa Mead. And I think a lot of the opportunities that this board has is that two individuals think we don't have policies and procedures, and I think the rest of the board thinks that we do. And we probably wouldn't be talking about this tonight if we followed the policies and procedures. So I'm trying to reach out to you and try to get some legal advice on policies and procedures.
So, and your references to the fact that there are open meeting law complaints that have been filed, including this one by Ms. Margulies.
Correct.
And part of it, what your contention is that the regularly scheduled meetings
That is
set
correct.
forth in the policies and
That is correct,
procedures.
yeah.
So, I mean, as far as I know, your policies and procedures are still in effect. There were allegations made that they were revoked at some point, and I believe we looked back at the minutes and that was not found to be true. So they're still in effect, and so according to your rules and regulations, policies and procedures, you're supposed to have your meetings regularly scheduled on, I think it's the first Tuesday and the third Tuesday of the month.
Yes.
At 7 p.m., yep.
And now, naturally, any board can call a special meeting. And, perhaps it would resolve the problems on the open meeting law complaints. The reality is, though, you have your agendas, and you have to stick to the topics on the agendas. Make sure things are posted properly. Make sure that you limit your conversation to those agenda items. And that's true of any meeting, whether it be special or regular. Now, if there are agenda items that you're not having addressed despite requests, that's more of a procedural problem. It's not really an open meeting law problem. You have to be able to work with your chairman who sets the agenda. That's part of the rules and regulations. The chairman sets the agenda because she's in charge of the board. She's in charge of the running of the board. She's in charge of calling people out of order. And I'm not pointing to anyone in particular. I'm just pointing to the audience in general. Calling people out of order, stopping discussion, moving on to the next topic. That's what a chairman does in any board. So that's not really an open meeting law question. It's a working together in a united way question.
And I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I think that's a good answer, but if you have policies and procedures and they're ignored, and process breaks down, what do you do? We're all volunteers here.
Sure.
With, no matter who you are, what your political stance is, you get elected to this board to do good for the public.
Mm-hmm.
And when processes break down, you're not doing good for the public.
Mhm.
Right.
And then public health and public safety are in jeopardy. And I'm not asking for a silver bullet or a magic, because it takes everybody working off the same plan. But if we're not working off the same plan, then my question is, why are we doing this? I mean, to what end? I mean, if we can't be 5 adults in the room being productive, then why are we doing this?
But a very sad thing, John, I mean, Ron got on the board in May. This illegal meeting, as she refers to it, is the first time that he ever heard a report from our health agent. Because he's not been allowed to give a report at any of the meetings. I mean, last week we had a meeting, there was 21 things on the agenda? And I think we got through 3.
Yeah, well, I'm hopeful.
And we've had no input on those agendas either.
Right.
It's, I can't speak for Ron, but I can speak for myself, and I can't speak for Mary. I have submitted numerous agenda items. I don't get a return email. I come to a meeting and find out that people are invited to meetings that we weren't aware of. For instance, if I hadn't talked to Mark, I wouldn't have known that this meeting was scheduled. You kind of get lucky when you find out about stuff.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we had a VIP member at our last meeting, Cheryl Sabaro. Three members of the board had no idea that she was coming. No coming. And she was shocked and amazed, like, in the hallway. What do you mean you didn't know I was coming? I'm like, and I've known Cheryl for, what, a decade?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you've known her probably 20 years, yeah.
Well, I'm hopeful
how do we fix those
that,
things?
I'm hopeful that the facilitation that's anticipated will be helpful. I mean, I can't tell people how to get along or
Right,
how to work
right.
well together in the employment context, because I do labor and employment law as well. I find that these kinds of facilitations or mediations or whatever approach you want to take are often more helpful than people expect. It's
Mhm.
actually very positive, especially even when people are skeptical.
Mhm.
You know, they're pleasantly surprised. So I'm hoping that once that gets coordinated, you all can work well together. I mean, that's the only thing I can suggest. Obviously, I think it's important to follow your policies and procedures because they were prepared by you, vetted by counsel. It makes sense. It gives people a framework so that personalities don't get involved. John won't get upset if the policy's being followed, and Judy will understand which policies the board is expecting to follow. So when expectations are fulfilled, that's always helpful. But you know, I can't tell people how to get along. I just hope that with the facilitation, people will learn to work together collaboratively.
But-
Well, I know we've all agreed on that, yeah.
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 It was my understanding that the meeting tonight was to address the open meeting law complaint, but also to address the things that were voted on at that meeting that Steve had complained about. And we were going to, revote them at another time. Isn't that what you understood?
I didn't set the agenda. I understood they were to be revoted last month, and they haven't been revoted. So I know council and I have had a conversation via email about whether the remediations have occurred. I don't think they've occurred.
Yeah.
And I think the chair still needs to put those remediations on the agenda.
Which she
So
has
that's
not
my
done.
question.
She
The
has not
last
done.
meeting was August 15th, is that correct, or?
No, last Tuesday,
August 29th was the last meeting. We
Last
did meet
Tuesday.
August 15th as well.
15th and 20th. And the chair has refused to put
So,
those on. And
At
when I
August
questioned her on-
15th, they weren't put on,
No.
because that's part of my response here.
I think we did some as many as we could at the last meeting on, no?
Last Tuesday?
Didn't we do, didn't we
Related to
try
this
to?
complaint?
Not related to this complaint.
No, not related to this,
Right.
related to Steve's.
Yeah, it really
To
was.
Steve, yeah,
Not
I
to
forgot about
this,
Steve.
not to this
Sorry.
complaint.
Okay.
Okay,
But
So-
before we jump into that, can I just bring up one thing and then I'll button it on this topic?
sure.
It came to the board's attention today that correspondence has gone out that the board is not aware of. To abutters of properties, letterheads have been changed, people's titles have been taken off. I can go into it, I can forward emails, no problem. Policy of the chair has been stated to people that no votes of the board have ever taken. And I'm referencing Conley Bus, Mark's and Laura's names were removed from the letterhead, take it upon themselves to, state positions of the board that the board has not taken. Once again, it goes back to policy and procedures. If we're going to work as a board, as a 5-member board, if 3 of us agree that that's a good way to do and 2 of us don't, well, that's still the flavor of the board. But when one person takes it upon themselves to represent the entire board and the other 4 members potentially don't know about it, to me, it's unethical.
So, because I don't want to deviate
Sure.
too far from our agenda, because we can't.
Right.
But
it all plays
perhaps-
into this, yeah.
Perhaps for the next agenda, we can post a review of, or actually, for the next agenda, I'd really like the remediation to occur, since I thought that
But
that
you've
was
asked 3
expected to
times.
happen.
You've asked 3 times for that already. You, town council, has asked for that 3 times already, and you're being ignored. So you can almost appreciate our frustration.
Well, I know that the items were posted for the agenda, certainly, so is it a problem of you couldn't get through the agenda? The last time, I think it was August
But they weren't posted.
15th, they weren't posted?
You know,
Yeah. I know that they were posted for maybe the 28th or the,
well, we met last week on the 29th.
weren't there 2 meetings last week, the 28th and the
There's the,
29th, but you
15th.
guys couldn't attend, you and Mary?
Yeah, let's see, old business.
Did you guys do them on Monday night?
We did we did a few.
Or was it on the agenda?
It was on the agenda, and then.
For the Monday night?
Then I think there were,
Was it on the
Got
agenda? for
sidetracked.
Monday night?
yeah, then there was additional stuff on Tuesday, you know, I don't know.
But then but you guys didn't get to them on that Monday night.
Excuse me. So what happened?
We
It
didn't,
got
we
put-
didn't really deal with a whole lot, other than trying to get through some of those previously
Right.
posted agenda items that I believe were, you know, on that. I can't recall how many we got through, I didn't bring my
Okay.
notes.
But you didn't get through all of them,
We
for
certainly did
certain.
not get through,
Okay.
and we didn't even get close.
So,
Yeah.
oh, not even close.
Well, and on August 15th,
Yeah,
items number 14 through whatever the last one is on that, we're showing you the agenda for August 15th, just so the public knows, as well as the board members, what we did. And it was
right. And a lot of these, I mean, although they were in, so from the August 15th meeting, a lot of these agenda items were hitting the agenda items that I had suggested. Judy just, you know, reworded them, which is perfectly acceptable. No, it's
She's good at
perfectly
that.
acceptable.
She is
She
good at
probably gave it better detail because she's more familiar with the topics than I am. So,
But not to be argumentative, counsel,
yeah,
putting those at the end of an agenda with that many agenda items, I mean, anybody who's been in a public meeting knows that you're not going to get to that agenda item. I mean, it's unrealistic in 2.5 hours that you would get to that.
right, I
Anybody
know,
who sat
but
in
for
on 2 or
example,
3 of these
they
meetings
were,
knows
they
that.
were spread out throughout this entire agenda, and this is jogging my memory here, because, for example, I remember, number 6 here, Conley Bus, parking at Chestnut and Brook Streets. I think my agenda item was citizens' complaints, and it was something, maybe it wasn't as fine-tuned as hers is here, so it was worded differently. But for example, that's number 6, and that was certainly one of the items that needed to be readdressed. I don't know where Mr. Morgan went.
Downstairs.
Oh, okay. But irrespective, you know, I thought most of these agenda items would be gone through, and then it was my understanding that either on the 28th or the 29th, it was further attempts were going to be made to get through those
Right, well,
items, but
And-
it
and we
hasn't
did-
happened.
We did go through and basically vote to look at the things, those topics again at future meetings, to try to get through as many of those items on that Monday
Yeah.
when John and Mary couldn't chat, just to say, all right, well, let's get through them for the sake of the complaint.
Right.
Because then we can, if we say we got through them, then we can revisit them, discuss them and talk about them and re-vote. That was really the prevailing.
Right, because
you
the
know,
only two, if I
thinking that-
recollect correctly, the only 2 items that required revoting were the minutes, which should be quite simple, and then the appointment of Mary to the liaison to the dementia clinic, or dementia,
Report from me.
Dementia friendly.
dementia friendly. Okay, so I believe those were the only votes that were taken that evening, and they weren't revoted. Is that what you're telling me,
Right.
John?
I think,
I mean, Ron.
I think we did vote to keep you,
Okay.
to keep you in
It
place.
might have
as
been
far-
done on Monday, but it wasn't
Yeah,
done
it
on
wasn't
Tuesday.
done on
No,
Monday.
on Monday.
We don't
and
know what
didn't do-
happened on
And we didn't do
Monday. We've never
anything,
seen any notes.
we didn't do anything with minutes.
We've had no
On-
updates, we've had no draft
on
minutes or
Monday.
anything like that.
Nothing.
Well,
But-
was
but-
Laura at the Monday's
No.
meeting?
No.
No,
No, you
nobody was
weren't.
at it.
Was there a
It's my-
recording?
I should have really brought my notes.
Was there a
I'm
recording?
sorry. Yeah, it was
Okay.
recorded.
So maybe, I mean, perhaps I could go through and try to figure out which agenda items were hit and which ones weren't, or perhaps coordinate with you, Ron, if you took some notes. And then we'll find out which agenda items need to be reposted again, and it can be accomplished at the next meeting, which would be September, if we were
So,
following the next,
The 19th.
yeah, the
It'd be next
19th.
week. Be next
Okay.
week. Now, can I just reference the email that you sent this entire board on 8/14? Dear Judy, since the agenda of 8:15 meeting did not contain all the items which were to be reposted from the 7/11, I have revised the response to the open meeting law. Blah, blah, blah. Post this agenda for the next meeting. It's the same letter as the one previously changed. However, in the event this posting deficiency is found to violate the open meeting law, most of the items discussed at the Board of Health meeting were reposted and disclosed public meeting on August 15th, 2017. The remaining items were reposted and disclosed at a public meeting on August 15th, thereby curing any deficiency. I was at that meeting. We did not do that.
No, we didn't.
And then your instructions to her, repost the remaining items which need to be reposted from 7/11. Again, it is recommended that that the reposted items for the 8/29 use the language reposted from 7/11. It didn't get done. And I think your intent was that you knew all five of us were gonna be at that meeting and that we could do that. So once again, I'm not trying to be a stickler here, but being a stickler is important when you come to talk to open meeting laws. Council instructs the chair to do something, and it doesn't get done, and now we're in my words, my opinion, we're acquiescing and going, well, we'll look at the tape and we'll do this. No. No. I'm a volunteer, we're all volunteer. The AG's gonna look at this, and with our track record, they're gonna come down hard on us. And you know what? They should. They should come down hard on us. And you know what? The AG warned us next time that we do something wrong, they're gonna fine us. They're gonna hold us accountable. This was a simple remediation. We've done it 100 times in this town. I don't think anybody thinks it was egregious of what you asked for, and it's been ignored 3 times.
So I want to be super fair here, because after that correspondence that I sent out, Judy responded, and she actually gave me a red line of her agenda showing where my agenda items had been captured by her agenda. And I'd say roughly 90% of them were there. The one that sticks in my mind as not being there was Mary's appointment. And there was maybe a couple others. But irrespective, most of her agenda did capture my agenda items on the 15th. But it's my understanding you didn't get
Right.
through the agenda items, which is
Right.
really sort of problematic in that, you have to be thoughtful with your time and try to move through business, even though, and speak on topics thoroughly for sure, but also get through the
But you would
business.
put the things that absolutely had to be dealt with
Right.
at the
Well,
top
that-
of the list, not
At the
halfway
bottom.
through or three
Yeah.
quarters.
Well, that was hopefully what last Monday's meeting was for, and
Yeah.
that's the only reason why I really
Why you went.
acquiesced and decided to go without you,
Right.
because we were supposed to be clearing up items that you had recommended
Yeah.
that we hopefully had
It
already
should have
cleared up.
happened
So
by policy and
we got
procedure on
to a
Tuesday.
certain number of those, but we did not get to all of them.
Okay, so
But,
that's progress,
Yeah, I mean, we did make some progress to that, and I wish I had my notes, so I apologize again.
That's fine, irrespective, we know it's
Yeah.
not complete, so I'll have to revise this response to the open meeting law complaint. And let's just deal with that, and I'll ask, I'll work with you, Ron, to see which remaining items need to be reposted, and I'll request, that those items be reposted for the next meeting, and I'll just revise this letter, because I need to get it in. The deadline is, for me, the 7th, because I asked for the extension. So I'll get it in.
Well, could I
under
just
the-
ask that we all get CC'd on it? Because I have no idea what transpired at that meeting. I don't think you do either.
No? At the Monday meeting? No
I mean,
idea.
and if we're talking about open meeting law violations that could potentially affect all of us, I think, I don't think it's unreasonable to be brought up to speed on them.
So naturally, I can provide information to you in an email chain. You can't respond
Right.
and deliberate and go
Right.
from there, but I can provide the proposed agenda to Judy, to everyone, so that you're
But
well
if you
informed.
do that, it would be nice if you asked to raise those to the top of the list.
Sure,
So that
I
we
will
can
do
get
that.
through them and we're not faced with this again.
I will do that. I will do that, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, she's even taken the, citizens' participation off. I mean, you have people that come here because they have a question, they wanna bring something up, and she's not allowing them to speak.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
not right.
I mean, she does control the agenda,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I will make the suggestion for sure that she post those final few items for the next agenda, and that you get through them so that you can go ahead and actually conduct Board of Health business, which would be wonderful. I mean, that's the best I can do. What I can also offer is to put another agenda item on regarding maybe just reviewing the policies and procedures so everyone's aware of what those existing rules are, so that people can better navigate while here. I could ask that too.
It's a definite thing that needs to happen.
Yeah.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great if you could do that.
Yeah, I'll definitely ask her, but again, she's the chair, she decides what it is, that's the power of the chair, you know.
If I may, in our policies and procedures, section 8 may be a good section to go over. It talks about the chairman shall. See, the word shall is used in that.
Okay,
And
and
it
let's
talks
not get
about-
into
No,
policies and
no,
procedures
but
now,
when
but
you
I'll
do
I'll
that, section
highlight
8.
it, section 8.
It helps to guide the chairperson, no matter who it is.
Okay, I'll definitely ask that she do that, and I'm happy to come and walk everybody through it.
So what is it you need from us tonight?
So tonight, in your packets, you should have my draft response, which we know
Yeah.
certainly now needs to be revised just a little bit. But I'll tell you, the only distinction between this response and the response to Mr. Morgan's initial complaint is found in the footnotes. So, again, the complaints both arise out of the same incident, which is where the meetings were moved from here to the basement back to this room. So the only distinction here is I noted, because Judy had provided greater detail on the discussion of John after leaving the room, after you two left the room, John's discussion. Again, I don't believe this to be relevant to responding to the complaint, but it was certainly something that she highlighted, so I felt she'd probably addressed.
What does it matter?
So her
My
allegation.
intent always was that I was coming back up here to do a meeting, and I've never
Sure.
shied away from that.
And
And did I
that's-
say to her, "You make me sick to my stomach"? I did. And
Right.
you can verify that.
So
yes.
that's why I wanted to address it, because she is making the allegation that your intent was otherwise. It was to,
My intent was my motion.
right, but her allegation in her complaint, so therefore I have to respond to it, is that your intent was to essentially lull Judy and KG into remaining in the basement and not heading upstairs. Now, and so that would be relevant if that were your intent, but we have contradictory evidence. We have your own testimony regarding your intent, which is
Right.
really only known to you. And then what kind of circumstantial evidence do I have? I've got Judy's belief of your intent. But that's also countered by a discussion I had with one of the members of the Nyanza committee who said essentially, you do your meeting upstairs and we'll do our meeting downstairs, and we can both conduct the business of our distinct boards. So I think your intent was to kind of respect his board.
Absolutely.
And the jurisdiction of that body, which may be different from this board. So I think as a consequence, that's why it's not relevant. It would be
Right.
relevant if you were trying to deceive someone into not attending a meeting. But I think with the evidence being what it is, so an independent party kind of confirming what you said your intent was, and what is only known to you in your heart of hearts.
But it's
And I
not
think-
only known to me, I would challenge, because everybody, except for you and the reporter in the back of the room, were in that room at that time, and I'm not trying to put any words in anybody's mouth, but everybody knew what my intent was to go upstairs. You
Yeah.
know, even staff here knew that was my intent. There
Yeah,
was no
so-
other intent. And that's why, and they even knew, because they refused to come upstairs.
Yes.
And that is what the point that is concerning
Yeah.
to me, is that now we're having, because you make a complaint, we can alter the facts. The facts are, they voted against coming
Right.
upstairs. So they can't say that they didn't know our intent was to come back upstairs.
And that's why I dismissed it
confusing.
as being not relevant to the response, but I acknowledged it
Okay,
because
okay.
it's responding to the complaint, and that's why it makes it to a footnote.
Well, I appreciate the clarification. though.
No problem. The second piece I added was, and I'm not recalling the exact date I was here last time, anyway, the beginning of August. And we were talking about Mr. Morgan's complaint, and Judy had indicated that she had tried to look on WACA-TV. I don't know if people say that, WACA or
WACA. WACA.
WACA.
W-A-C-A.
She was unable to view the video, and perhaps there was a problem with either the video or the internet or whatever. But I went back, because I actually viewed the video myself, and I obviously wasn't there, so I had to view it online. And I was able to do it. And after that meeting, I wanted to make sure it was still up on the web, and it was. So I didn't want the AG's office, when they were reviewing the meeting, to be concerned with that. So I directed the AG to essentially the exact web address, even the pertinent number for the video, so that the AG could easily access it if this complaint were to be appealed. So I think those are really the two major differences between the two responses. And so the only thing we would really need to do is change the August 15th date in the body of the second to last paragraph on page 2 to the next meeting of the Board of Health anticipated. I'll say anticipated because, again, only the chair can call the meeting, and she's not here. So anticipated to be September 19th. Is that correct? Your understanding of the next
well,
meeting?
Technically,
That
we-
would
no,
be the
it-
third, right?
Technically,
'Cause this is the first
Let's
Tuesday,
do that.
right?
yeah, but we're not meeting.
It is
Right,
the
that's
19th.
true.
It is the 19th.
Should be the 19th.
Should be the
It's
19th.
the third.
Should be the
third
19th.
Tuesday.
So I'll indicate to Judy that the next meeting should be posted, because I'm indicating that as the anticipated date. I don't want to misspeak again, you know. So I'll indicate that that's the next anticipated meeting.
It's a small thing, but once again, it goes back to process.
Yeah.
The chair is saying because there is an open meeting complaint filed by her, that any votes and any minutes from that meeting are null and void. Is that true?
So, if you remember, we talked about this last time. This is kind of an unprecedented situation. So we're not sure, and I believe actually I got a note in the mail the other day that Mr. Morgan did file an appeal, so the AG will take a review of it, of his complaint. But this is something that can be likened to an overcapacity situation. For example, when you have a hot topic, you didn't expect it to be as hot as it actually was, and you have too many people show up, so you move the room. Which the AG has said, that's acceptable. You know, you potentially have a violation because people don't have access. Or actually, they say you have a violation because people don't have access, but you've cured the violation right then and there in the meeting and by moving the room. So this is sort of similar to that. That's the best way I could liken it, but there has not been an established case that I'm aware of that says that actually the board was convening in the same room as another meeting and felt it was unproductive, so consequently they moved it. I mean, theoretically there was capacity there. There was, you know, all of the, despite being distracting or whatever, not productive. So that's why I say I wasn't 100% sure that the vote would be invalid. We're just doing the belt and suspenders approach by saying, listen, just to ensure that the public has full access to what we discussed, let's repost, and what we voted, let's repost, because that's the entire purpose of the open meeting law, to allow the public to participate and to understand what motivated you to take the votes you voted.
Well, my question is, and thank you for that.
Yeah,
sorry to
sure.
interrupt, is this a board agreed 3-2 that Laura would be our official minutes and notes taker?
Mm-hmm.
The correspondence that is being sent to the AG's office by the chair is her meeting minutes,
Yeah.
not the board's meeting minutes. And hence my question is if that meeting wasn't a legitimate meeting, and maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, the minutes are still legitimate. But the board hasn't voted to accept those minutes, but our meeting is being betrayed by minutes that I have not even reviewed, and I don't think the board has. And most importantly, the board hasn't taken a vote on to approve those as minutes, so are those valid minutes as well?
So no minutes are valid unless they're approved. I mean, you have to provide draft minutes when people request them as a public record. That's the rule. But
which
they
are we
don't become
providing?
the minutes of the board until they're approved. So you have to work that out in a meeting to determine which minutes are going to be approved or which edits need to be made to the minutes, because it happens all the time that minutes get edited at a meeting. Oh, you know what? Actually, I showed up at 7:45 instead of, 7 o'clock. So can you make a note of that? Or, someone else remembers something else. It happens routinely across many boards.
But is it a fair statement that the AG looks at a letterhead, comes in the mail, and it says minutes from the Ashland Board of Health? You know what happens when you assume, but I don't think it's a stretch for the AG's office to assume, okay, these are the minutes of the board, and they're not the minutes of the board. And I'm concerned about that.
And hers, I believe, say draft across them.
Whose
so
draft, though? It's not the board's draft.
I know,
They're the chair's
I
draft.
understand that.
And that's
I
a
understand
big,
that.
It's a big concern of mine.
But I understand that. So what I could do is I could say, and I believe she has both minutes, both draft sets, in her complaint, but I could drop another footnote to say there's disagreement with the board. Ms. Margulies does not believe that the minutes reflect her understanding of the meeting, and nor do the remaining members think, or not remaining members, because I think I'm not sure if KG agrees with the minutes or not, but I'll certainly note Mary's and John's disagreement with her draft minutes. I'm not sure if Ron.
Well, I'll simplify it.
Join
I'll make
that.
a motion that I don't like the word instruct, but instruct council to provide both the chair's meeting minutes and our administrative assistant's meeting minutes for review on this case.
And I'll just note that there's a dispute as to the accuracy of the minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
Of both sets, because that's fair. She disputes yours.
So I got a motion, so,
I'll second that.
second?
Yep.
Okay,
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's a 3-0 vote, so
okay.
that way it's binding.
Yeah,
Nobody can say,
Well, see,
oh.
we shouldn't have to vote, because we already voted. Laura should be doing the minutes, so.
Right, right.
That's.
Well, I'm glad that we are in
Yeah.
agreement on that, and I
that-
think we're all in
we-
agreement on that.
We did
yeah.
take that vote.
Yep.
okay. So I will drop that note. I will make the other amendment, that all the agenda items haven't been covered, but they're expected to be covered, at the 19th meeting. And I think that should do it. So if someone wanted to make a motion to approve the response as amended, that would be great, and I could send it off.
So all we're really
Good.
changing
You
is
good
that
with
last
Okay.
sentence in the next to last paragraph? And we're
Yeah.
just changing the date from to September 19th?
Yeah,
That's all we're-
exactly.
Okay.
And dropping that footnote about the minutes. That's
Yes.
it. And I think it should be
It
good.
sounds appropriate.
I mean, it's consistent with the last response. I think it acknowledges Judy's concern. I found, having discussed with Judy and with John and with the gentleman from the Nyanza Committee, I think it's not relevant, but it certainly acknowledges the allegation in the complaint, so the AG knows at least it was vetted at that level.
I know it's a difficult question for you, and I apologize for it. You've asked for 3 extensions on this, and you're gonna have to ask for a 4th on this, right, now?
No, this, I only asked for
You
the.
have to draft by the 7th.
Yeah, so I can send it off with your approval. I can send it off tomorrow.
No, but isn't the AG going to say, well, you know,
Oh, you
you're
mean as
you're
term-
responding by the 7th, but we're not going to meet until the 19th.
In terms of the curing,
Determine-
that's not
can-
really an extension that I need to be concerned with at this moment. I mean, I need to be concerned with it, that I really want you all to cure any potential deficiencies, but the firm timelines I need to follow, I'm
No,
fully compliant
What I'm
when I
saying
send it on the
is
7th.
is there a chance that the AG is gonna go, no, we're not doing that?
Sure, there's a chance that the AG will disagree with my analysis completely.
And that concerns me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that deeply concerns me, because I think we would all agree, and when I say all, I think of all 5. I mean, what is today, September 5th? This
Yeah.
happened on July 11th.
I mean, what can I say? Prompt curative action is better. It is definitely better.
Well, potentially, what could the violation of this be if we're not granted it next time?
Yeah, you can be fined. If it's an intentional violation, you can be fined. And I'm not sure of the limits on the fine, but
5,000.
yeah, so
5,000.
it's a big chunk of change.
So each
to
of us
be-
could potentially be on the hook for $1,000 on this.
Yeah, it's not something to
You guys are-
dismiss.
I'm not comfortable with that.
No,
I'm not comfortable with that one iota.
and I mean, I thought
It's
the
not
way-
the money, it's the principle.
But
I
I
thought the
think-
way it was conducted, that they did not adjourn the meeting, all they did was recess to go downstairs. And we then, once the meeting was called back in order, the motion was made to resume up here, to not interfere with the meeting downstairs.
Right.
And is that a big sticking point? Was the meeting agended, or was the,
Recessed.
recessed, or was it just?
No, so
or-
that it was appropriate procedure. When she recessed and went into the basement, that is a perfectly
recess?
appropriate procedure. So, and she had been super careful to post it that the meeting would take place, because part of the posting requirement is to notify the public where the location is, so that they can attend. So when she posted the meeting initially, she posted it for the selectmen's meeting room here. And then she clearly posted that it would be reconvened down the basement. So what the crux of the complaint was that when you went back upstairs, it wasn't part of the posting. And that's where the analogy between that meeting and an overcapacity situation comes into play, right? Because you have the meeting posted for the junior high, say, and it turns out it can't be in the band room, it's gotta be in the auditorium because there are too many people. you have a violation because you posted it for the band room. So here there was a violation. The question is, was it cured when you made the motion verbally to say, I'm going to push this meeting upstairs? That's what happens in those contexts. And it has to be justified by an unanticipated event, right? You have this overcapacity situation. So that's why you're allowed, the AG comes back and says, okay, there was a violation here, but they cured it by taking this corrective action immediately. So, and that's the questionable issue, and so that's the crux of the complaint. So to recess, that procedure wasn't the improper thing, or the potentially improper thing. What the thing, moving it where it wasn't posted back to this room was theoretically the problem, because it wasn't written on the posted agenda that way.
No, I understand that, and I would tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
But if you recess the meeting that was in here, wouldn't you have to reopen it in here using that same logic then?
So, no,
If you
because
recessed it in here.
on her agenda, she said it will be reconvened
Okay.
in the basement.
Okay.
So it was actually posted that way.
I understand, okay.
So she was very careful to notify the public in advance that although we were gonna start here at 6, we're moving to the basement at 7. So she was careful to have that written out.
Okay. And I'm not trying to include Ron in this, but on Ms. Margulies'
I should be included on that. Of
specific
course I
persons
should.
who has alleged committed the violation, myself
Right.
and Mary.
Right.
And I know you were not responsible for this, but this is a complaint against the Board of Health. It's not a complaint against John and Mary. It's a complaint against the Board of Health.
Yeah.
Ron's a member, and
Right.
I think he understands the spirit that I'm going in.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to spread blame or anything like that. But it wasn't just John and Mary.
Yeah,
Right.
Like, he's guilty by association because he voted on it, but Ron's on it.
I was here too.
But it's
Absolutely.
really, the chair is calling out the Board of Health for an open meeting law violation. So is this right? Is it accurate?
so her complaint, I mean, I obviously
Right.
don't advise someone how to file a complaint. That's definitely not my job. So, yeah, I mean, would they impute that on, would the AG impute the allegation on the entire board? Yeah, because the board doesn't have a meeting unless there's a quorum. So you're acting as a body.
And just to follow up on one of John's last point about the actual location.
Yeah.
What about the agenda items that we spoke about? You know, certainly, I think Mary's and John and my understanding that we were supposed to take up items that we actually voted on in a previous meeting at that meeting. If
Right.
those weren't posted, is that a specific, violation as well? Or
Yeah,
is that-
so absolutely. If you have discussions on topics which aren't posted, it's generally considered a violation. Where there's some distinction if it was wholly unanticipated. So someone raises an issue from the general public and they say, actually, there is a water issue that needs to be discussed because it's causing a health hazard. It needs to be addressed
An
right
emergency.
now. An emergency. You can go ahead and deal with that on, even though it wasn't posted. Better practice is if someone raises something that wasn't anticipated, it would be better to put it on the next agenda if circumstances warranted. If it was such an emergency where you had to deal with it right then and there because otherwise you'd be shirking your duties, obviously there's an exception there. So it gets a little squishy there when there are unanticipated topics. But certainly if it's anticipated and the chair just chooses not to put it on there, don't go ahead and delve into those conversations because that would be a violation.
But part of our problem is, we need the things that were voted on at that meeting put on an agenda so that we can correct it. And we're not being allowed to do that because the agenda is not what we're asking for in order to cover that.
Well, I think on the last agendas, to be very fair, I think the last few agendas, they did properly list those items. It's just they couldn't, the board, when it was the three of you couldn't get through it, or when we were all together, you just couldn't get through it. So, and that's really the important role of the chairman, to rein everybody's conversations in and to say, okay, we've discussed it. Maybe we should have a vote if a vote is necessary, or maybe we should move on to the next topic.
But those should
It's-
be at the top of the agenda.
Yeah.
So that they can be dealt with right away, and
We've-
we're being,
We've all been in meetings,
Yeah,
and even, I hate to put you on the spot, where that is placed on the agenda in a 2-hour meeting, it's not realistic. And I'm not gonna put words in your mouth, but you know that, it's not realistic. So, we could say, and not trying to be adversarial, like, this is being done by design.
absolutely.
It's being done, it's being done else, well, I put it on the agenda. Well, yeah, but you've listed, there hasn't been a Board of Health meeting held in this town in 40 years that's had 22 items on an agenda, because it's not realistic. It's not doing the people's work. I mean, unfortunately, there's probably 22 issues, but anybody who is, served on a board in this town, and we've all served on many boards in this town, when I was a selectman, I would never put 22 items on an agenda, or when you were the chair of this board, you never put 22 items, because you know that it's not. So if you do something and you know it's not unrealistic, that's intent.
so to be fair.
I understand, and you're always good about being fair.
To be,
You're good about that.
Trying to be fair.
And I applaud you for it.
To be fair, the only items that needed to be reposted were the items that you did get through at a meeting, whether it be properly or not. So theoretically, it was
no.
yes, because this occurred. The only thing I asked to be reposted were those items which were discussed at the
July 11th.
third half of the July 11th meeting, or third.
Which was
Part.
quite a bit.
Yeah, which was, so you made it through them.
No, we haven't.
No,
No,
you
we
made it
made it
through
through
them
the,
initially
right.
at the July 11th meeting. That's
Right,
why
right.
they warranted reposting, see? So it's theoretically possible to get through them. I know you can
It is
because you
theoretically
did.
get through those from one meeting.
Yes.
Yes, I agree with you
Yeah.
1,000% on
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
not if you put 20 other things in front of it, though.
Right, no, and I'll make the suggestion for sure that Judy place those last remaining items first on the agenda, just so they can get through, you guys can get through them, and then whatever is touched on after that is gravy, and then on the subsequent agendas, you can go ahead and do Board of Health meetings. For certain, I will ask that she put them on first,
Well,
John.
with that caveat, then I would, if I may, Mr. Vice Chair, I'd make a motion that we request council to be present at our September 19th meeting
Yes,
to advise us on any and all of these issues.
absolutely. I'll second that.
Vote?
Aye.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
okay.
Hate to do that to you, but send Lisa.
Kate, and the last thing is, when every single one of these agendas always has agenda subject to change, what leeway does that give us? You're saying basically, from what you just said, gives you basically zero leeway.
No, so
Except
you-
in emergencies.
In
So-
emergencies.
So if we
yeah.
wanted to bring up, let's say, the other open meeting law complaint that you received, or the appeal from Steve Morgan, we can't do that tonight because that wasn't on this agenda.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying, why is that even on here if you really can't do anything anyway? What legal?
Well,
Because
what
emergencies
legal
do
grounds
come up.
does that?
Emergencies-
do
Well, no,
more than you would
so,
think.
okay, so that.
putting those aside, you wouldn't have to post that because an emergency,
Is
you
an
don't need to
emergency.
notify, but you're
Correct.
not doing the public any benefit by listing that as an agenda item, because it could be the sun's rays are causing us to have skin cancer. I mean, that would be pertinent information to the public. You want to advise the public with sufficient detail so they know, is that something I'm interested in? Okay, but I think the reason why that's put on there is oftentimes the agenda is posted well ahead of the 48-hour requirement. So it's notifying the public that, geez, so long as I'm within but prior to that 48-hour window, I can go ahead and amend that agenda. And that happens all the time, and it's not a violation at all. So you can put an amended agenda on there and capture other items that maybe have come up in the week prior, and from the time of the original posting, but before the 48 hours. So I'm thinking that's probably why it's there.
Because we used to always have, when, in our agenda, there was always a member's, vice chair's comments or discussion. Mark's report was always in there, so he could keep us updated on what he did with the wells and so on and so forth. And that is all missing.
Yeah.
And
It
it's,
goes back to my original
Well,
question.
and
too.
I
sorely needed to go back into the agenda.
I think perhaps we can cover that next time when I ask Judy to put a review of the policies and procedures on as an agenda item. And we can walk through that process, and those concerns can be voiced then. I think that is, a valid concern. So let's fully
Right.
vet that at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we approve Attorney Federoff's response to the AG on Judy Margulies' open meeting law complaint, with the one addition is that we're changing the August 15th date in the next to last paragraph to September 19th, 2017.
And dropping the
extra
footnote.
footnote.
And then adding the extra footnote.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay.
And advise me if we're going down the slippery slope, but the question that I asked earlier, and we got sidetracked on a separate conversation, is when correspondence goes out from this board, and it's not vetted by this board, how do we handle that?
I think it's certainly a discussion that I will have at the next meeting when we go over the policies and procedures.
Okay.
I don't want to go off topic
and I don't
because
either.
we don't want to invite another complaint. But certainly I've heard your concern, and
And I'll forward it all to you.
yeah, and I might even think about asking Judy to put, I'm not sure if that's contained in your policies and procedures, so maybe just talk about process in general, and the operation of a board in general as one of the agenda items. I can ask her to put that on so it's appropriately described.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
good.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Anything
All right,
else?
thank you.
Well, this is a question maybe for our attorney. So, such as in our policies, it talks about board wishing in-depth inquiry, which you're suggesting at the next meeting. I've been on boards where votes are taken at the previous meeting to have it on the next agenda. But if the board so wishes to vote that, if they don't, is there that chance that it never gets on any agenda in the future? We're discussing this in general, that you'll be available to discuss policies and procedures at the
Right.
next meeting.
But if it's not on
But
the
if
agenda.
it's not on the agenda, it may never happen.
Oh,
So can
I'm
the
see-
board vote here today to have an agenda item for the next agenda?
Yeah, you could do that.
I'm just suggesting that only because, it could never happen possibly.
So we need a motion to
Review
Well,
the
what it says-
policies.
review
and
the policies and procedures at our
For
next
the
meeting.
Yep.
I'll make that motion. I'll make a
I'll
motion
second
that
it.
we review the policies and procedures of the board with
Okay.
council
Yes, at the next meeting.
at the next meeting, which is September
Let it be
19th.
on the next agenda. It gives direction.
Could I make a suggestion before you vote? If you're itemizing things for the agenda, also capture in that discussion of the topics required for curing the July 11th.
I'll alter my motion then.
Yeah.
I will alter my motion, if the board so approves, is that, to be placed on the September 19th agenda at 7 PM, that we review and place on the agenda the remediation suggested by council for the open meeting law complaint filed by Ms. Margulies, and a open review of the policies and procedures with council direction at that meeting.
I'll
I think
second
I
that.
crossed all the Ts and dotted all the Is on that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
And if that doesn't happen, then that's a policy and procedure kind of type of thing, right?
It is a policy and procedure issue, sure. It absolutely is.
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
At what time?
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned at
7:58.